Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is a best-selling aphrodisiac cookbook author, speaker, and consultant, no other than Miss Amy Riley.
Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is. I've lost track. Hi.
Wherever, all over the world.
Yes, exactly. I remember having coffee at some point. How's that?
Yes, definitely. According to my analytics, I got 148 countries listening to me. So, good morning,
Wow.
good afternoon, and good evening to
Mhm.
everyone. So, Miss Amy, can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, I'd love to. So I'm Amy Riley, and I'm considered a leading aphrodisiac foods authority. I have my master's degree in gastronomy from Le Cordon Bleu, and I am the author of 5 aphrodisiac cookbooks, including a couple award-winning books and an Amazon bestseller.
Miss Amy, why aphrodisiac food?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, why not?
Why not?
So I have always loved history and folklore, and I've always loved food history. And it's a really looking at aphrodisiacs is a really fascinating avenue of food history. And so, from that perspective, I just like it. But beyond that, when I was in my early 20s, I got very, 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 very sick. And it took a long time to diagnose it. And basically, I had no energy. I was just a listless person. I had no joy in much of anything. I was losing weight rapidly. And finally, the doctor told me, okay, what you have here is a combination of a severe mold allergy and a systemic yeast infection, which basically both combined kind of destroys your whole digestive system. And I had to rebuild that. And the way to rebuild that was recommended to me was by changing my diet drastically. Luckily, it was only a short term change because it was the worst diet you could ever imagine. But what amazed me was that within days, I started to feel better. Eating on this drastic, restricted diet. I felt remarkably better. I started not minding the horrible diet because it made me feel so good, and I recovered. Within months, I was fully recovered from it, and it just made me realize how profoundly what we put in our bodies affects everything in our lives. It affects our success. It affects our joy. Um, and of course, it affects our sex drive and sexual performance. And I just thought, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to talk to people about how eating, making great food choices can so positively impact your entire life. And I thought, well, I love aphrodisiacs and this is something I've been studying. And so, what better way to introduce people to the idea of changing your diet to feel better than to tell them, hey, if you start, making these food choices, you're going to have a great sex life.
Definitely, because because people, if they heard aphrodisiac, they pertaining to boost their
Mhm,
sexuality. So,
mhm,
Miss Emmy, can you give
mhm.
tips for those people who have less aphrodisiac food?
Mm.
What are your tips for them?
So, first of all, get my cookbooks, obviously, because they're full of really tasty ways to, incorporate aphrodisiacs into your life. Beyond that, um, if you look at foods that are historically considered aphrodisiac, most of them, in fact, are really nutritious foods. A lot of them. So I run a website called eatsomething.sexy.com. And there we have lists of the 10 best foods for women's sexual health and the 10 best foods for men's sexual health. And when you look at those lists, you'll notice that these foods not only maybe have some sort of nutrient that's good for women or good for men, but also, and good for everyone really, but also that most of the foods on these lists tend to be like really nutrient dense for the amount of calories they have. Take, for example, watermelon. Watermelon is historically an aphrodisiac. It turns out it is really great for men's sexual health. But watermelon is a food that's super low calorie, yet is packed with nutrition. And, these are the kind of foods that are going to be great for your sex life.
That's why I love watermelon. So, Miss Amy, can you tell us about your culinary days in Le Cordon Bleu?
So I was part of a really interesting program through Le Cordon Bleu. It was actually a Master of Arts degree, so an MA degree, in collaboration with an Australian university called the University of Adelaide. And our program was dedicated to the study of everything about food except the practical, except cooking it. Now, I will say that we sometimes did have to cook to better understand some of the concepts that we were studying. So there was cooking involved, and everyone in the program, was a proficient cook. But we studied, the link between food and psychology, food and history, food in the arts, anything that has to do with food beyond cooking it.
Yes. So, what did you learn from those years that you studied culinary?
Well, I was very lucky because a huge component of that program was self-directed study. And every time we had the opportunity to do self-directed study, I focused on aphrodisiacs. And, I had access at that point to a lot of the best research materials in the world. And so that's where my knowledge of aphrodisiacs really grew, not just, looking at the history as well as the scientific data and the anthropological data. It was a really wonderful opportunity, and I took full advantage.
Definitely amazing, Miss Amy. But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening in Singapore. Thank you so much, Singapore, for supporting this podcast because in Central Singapore Community Development Council, I got 80% audience share. Singapore at 19% and Tamin New Town at 1%. Again, thank you, Singapore, for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Miss Amy Reiley. So let's talk about your latest book. What is the title?
So, my latest book, and I'm so excited about it, it's called The Better Sex Bundle for Men. And if you're a woman listening and you're wondering, what about me? I actually am working on a companion book for women. It will be out in April of this year. But the Better Sex Bundle for Men takes all the things that I've just talked about in brief, puts it all together, not only in a book, but a whole system with printable pages where you can kind of customize the concept for yourself of eating for your sexual health.
What was the writing process like for this book?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, writing processes are always kind of fascinating, aren't they? Fortunately,
Yes.
yeah, for this book, I had a starting point, which was, as I mentioned, I have on eatsomething.sexy.com, I have this list of the 10 best foods for men. And that was where I started. I took that list and all the research that had been done on those foods, both by me and I consult a lot. I have a consultant uh, who has her PhD in nutrition, and so all the information that the two of us had compiled on these 10 foods, and then I was just able to build from there. I talked a lot. I mean, I get a lot of feedback from my readers and friends. People really like to talk about this topic. And so I knew sort of some of the pieces that were missing for people. And so I concentrated very hard on incorporating those things, not just here are the foods, here are recipes. It was more about, okay, here are the foods and the recipes. Now, what else do you need to think about? And trying to give the support for those things, if you know what I mean. Like, okay, well, it's also about getting enough sleep and exercise and intimacy with your partner. And how can you incorporate those missing links into this diet? And so it was really a lot of taking what I'd already learned from others and from my own website and compiling it in a way that's easily digestible and hopefully will digestible. That's funny. And and hopefully, making it inspirational so that you want to do it.
Certainly. So, how did you come up with a title for your book? And what does it signify?
Oh, wow. I have tried many different methods for coming up with titles. In fact, my favorite, my very first book is called Fork Me, Spoon Me. And this is like when you're thinking of titles. I had some really lame title for the book, a working title that was really lame. Um, and I got off of a I was working with a publisher at the time. I got off of a very, very bad phone call. And it was one of those phone calls where, the words coming out of the other person's mouth, the sentences usually started with, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't say this, you can't put this in your book. I remember slamming down the phone and going, "Oh, fork you." And I went, wait, there's a title in that. No, not fork you, fork me, fork me. And that's how I wound up with Fork Me, Spoon Me for the title of my first book. Better Sex Bundle for Men, Not So Romantic. I just wanted to come up with, I was kind of under duress because the whole book was done. I had no title. And I just wanted, like, what just tells people what's in here? It's better sex. Better sex is in here. And it's not just a book, it's a whole bundle of stuff. So there it is, Better Sex Bundle.
Better sex bundles. How did you craft it?
It was fast. It was a really fast process. I think, well, because I had so much of the material was really done for me. It was already existed on a website. Um, and I already had many of the recipes as well. So cookbooks usually take quite a long time because of recipe testing. I think it was 2.5 months for this
Oh,
book.
wow.
Oh yeah, it hurt. It hurt. And then there was, a bit of refining. There probably another month of editing and refining it. But yeah, it was fast.
So, did you test all the recipes that you shared in the book?
Oh, absolutely. My testing process is normally it's somewhat complicated. When I'm working on a book, I personally test the recipes 3 times. Then I send them to home cooks to test. And if any issues arise from the home cooks, then I go back, test it again myself, send it to more home cooks after it's been refined again. Um, it can be a really lengthy process. Luckily for this book, I was able to take a lot of recipes that were already published on my website, and a few recipes that I just had been working on and hadn't used anywhere. So the majority of the recipes were all ready to go for this book. So that's where I was able to do it so quickly because most of the material existed. It was stuff I'd been working on. So you could say I've been working on this book for years, but at the same time, when I finally committed to writing it, it was an extraordinarily quick process.
Congratulations, Miss Amy.
Oh, thank you.
What do you hope readers will take away from this book?
So what I really would like is for people to understand that eating for your sexual health can be pleasurable. What I most want them to take away is doing it. Understanding that it is doable and it is fun. That's where the extra pieces, the printable pieces come in. I give you a sample 3-day menu so you understand what it could look like. I give you a fill in your own menu, a planner so that you can you can kind of organize your week, organize your thoughts ahead of time so you know. And the most important piece is that I give you a journal. And it's not like a write down your feelings journal, not at all. It's more of like a check the box kind of it's a self check in. It's a reminder to check in with yourself each day and say, how did I feel today? Did I stick to this diet and how did that make me feel? And what other factors may have either messed things up or made things better? I exercised today and I had more energy, or I changed medications today. And that can be like, oh, there might be a problem. I maybe need to talk to my doctor about a different medication. It's all those things, just checking in with all the parts of your body and how they perform together. And what I think people can take away is having this check in with themselves. It just makes you see how much you influence, how those little micro choices in your day really influence how great you can feel.
Definitely. Were there any particular authors
Mm.
or books that influence your writing style for this cooking book?
For this book, I mean, I was most influenced by the nutritionist I work with, Delana Flagg. I was most influenced by the things that she repeatedly has said to me, the things that in her work as a nutritionist she's been seeing as important. So rather than another author influencing me, it was a professional who's out in the field and seeing this every day.
Interesting. Can you share a memorable moment from your writing journey that had a significant impact on the book?
Ooh, wow. Um, what was really most significant for writing this book is that I had the experience of 5 previous books, um, some of which were much more successful than others. And, I mean, that's just the ups and downs of a writer's life. And so really it was just drawing on my own experience, my own past, and being reflective.
Certainly. But before we go on, Miss Amy, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our fourth season with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the five-star restaurant in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our upcoming episode. We're gonna talk about our Food 101 Volume 12, Italian cuisine, people. And not only one, Food 101 Volume 1, Basics until 13 is only the books that you need how to create a delicious food. Available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. How important was the research process for this book?
Oh, this book is purely research based. I mean, it's essential to every page of this book. I spend My time is largely spent, looking at data, reading reading dense research papers, and trying to translate that for myself, frankly, as well as for my readers, into things that are interesting and understandable and doable. Um, so yeah, it was huge, huge.
Is there a specific recipe that you want to share to us, to our listeners? Ah, I love that.
Ooh,
To boost your
so
aphrodisiac, to boost your sex life.
well, it's funny because I'm trying to think. Well, I usually talk seasonally, but of course, your listeners are all over the world, so we're in different seasons. Um, Smoothies are great every time of year. Just simple fruits and vegetables, throw them together. Something delicious and tropical. I love, like, take some frozen mango pieces, add a banana. Ginger is excellent for your sex life as well as your digestion. Throw in some ginger. Throw in some spinach, and you've got yourself, a beautiful drink it's great for your sex life. It's a great way to start your day. There you go.
I- Interesting. Banana too, right? Banana is good
Yeah,
for
so
sex
yeah,
life.
some banana, all of those foods, all those ingredients I just named are aphrodisiac. Oh, throw in some pineapple too. Make it really
Pineapple.
tangy and yummy. Yes.
Definitely. So, how do you think your book stands out in its genre or category?
Well, there aren't a lot of aphrodisiac cookbooks. And there certainly aren't any aphrodisiac cookbooks really that are focusing, hey, men eat these foods and it's going to improve your sex life. So, I'm sometimes I feel alone in the field, but I really am. For better or for worse, that's where I am.
Definitely. But do you think sooner or later you're gonna invent vitamins instead of
Nah.
food?
No, you know what? It's always better to get those nutrients from food than from a pill. And it can be much more exciting to get it from a food.
Definitely. It's natural, people. Better and better. So, what kind of readers do you believe will connect most with your book and why?
Well, obviously, the better sex bundle for men is addressing men. However, I always tell people if you're a man or your partner is a man, that you are going to get benefits from this book. So, anyone who believes, that eating, they changing the way they eat, not in a huge way, but changing slightly the way you think about food and approach it, if you want it to benefit your sex life, this book is for you.
For real. Are there any plans for a follow up for this book?
So the Better Sex Bundle for Women is coming out in April 2024.
Congratulations. And you are most welcome to come back and promote the sex bundles.
Thank you.
So, Miss Amy, what advice will you give to aspiring authors who look to embark on their own writing journeys?
I believe that anyone who wants to create a book has a book in them. And, I firmly believe in just holding on to that dream, just doing it. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't take a million classes on it, instead of doing it. Just do it. Just do it. I've had
Go for
successes,
it.
I've had failures. It's all okay. You learn from both.
Yes, go for it, people, and stop procrastinating. Who knows you are one of the best in the making, like Miss Amy. Can you share any interesting anecdotes behind the book?
Ooh, any interesting and behind this book? Well, I'll tell you actually the most profound thing is, the one thing that people are still probably sitting there thinking is, well, do the aphrodisiacs really work? Is this really going to work for me? So my best evidence is I get a lot of anecdotal evidence from my readers. However, uh, my personal experience was that when I was working on my very first book, Fork Me, Spoon Me, I had this male friend who he was just a friend, but I knew that he didn't cook. He lived on, he'd pick up meals on his way home from work or whatever, a can of soup maybe. Um, and so I kept inviting him over. As I mentioned, you test recipes a lot when you're making a cookbook. I have way too much food. So I'd invite him over. Hey, I've got food. Come eat, come eat. I believe it's like 2 years later, we moved in together. And then when I was working on my next book, I got pregnant with our first child. So
Congratulations.
yes, so he is now my husband of I don't remember how many years, 11 years, something like that. So if you wonder whether aphrodisiacs work, I
That's
am a living testament.
yes. Lastly, what's next for you as an author?
So, as I mentioned, I am working on the Better Sex Bundle for women. And then I want to work on more small and fun things. Like I've been trying for the past month, I just have writer's block. I've been trying to create a Valentine scavenger hunt that you could use, a scavenger hunt around your house that you could use for Valentine's Day or any kind of date night to create extra romance. I'd like to create a card pack of like little romantic ideas or romantic conversation starters, just little fun things that kind of help. I've been so focused on sexual health, but there is, the romance element is also very important. And I kind of want to find fun ways to celebrate that.
Interesting and looking forward to that. Miss Amy, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Oh my goodness. I would love that. I mean, I made them for other people. I made them to share these wonderful experience of aphrodisiacs and aphrodisiac foods. So please check them out. I hope you enjoy. I'd love to hear from you if you do. If you want to find me and find out more about these books and all of my work, go to eatsomething.sexy.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Amy Reiley. If you support her, more aphrodisiac books to come. So, Miss Amy, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Lots of fun. More to come, people. See you soon.